Hi there. At first glance, this is just a typical murder investigation. A detective, a mysterious cold case, and a talented dog trained to find human remains. But then a bone shows up where no one expected. Then another. Then another. Until it becomes clear. Something isn't adding up. What if the person solving the case was the one creating it all along? On a Thursday morning, August 30th, 2001, Sergeant Alan McGregor and his partner, Officer Mark David, drove toward the Huron National Forest in northern Michigan. Their mission? To meet a very unorthodox detective who McGregor believed might finally unlock a mystery that had haunted him for over 2 decades. The disappearance of a woman named Charita Thomas. Back in 1980, Charita had vanished. She was last seen getting into a car with an older man near the police station where McGregor worked. That man was believed to be Jimmy Nelson. Detectives had long suspected he picked her up, murdered her, and buried her somewhere in a certain area of the forest. But no body had ever been found. They'd scoured the forest for years, even brought in the FBI. Still nothing. No physical proof. Only speculation. But now, McGregor had hope. He parked at the edge of the forest and met the unusual detective. A Doberman Pinscher mix with droopy ears, laying in the grass, tail wagging. His name was Eagle. He didn't look like a police dog, because he wasn't. Still, Eagle had a reputation. Trained by his handler, a woman named Sandra Anderson, Eagle was known for being the best human remains detection dog anywhere. Sandra had rescued Eagle from a shelter just days before he was going to be put down. She trained dogs for cadaver searches, and she started working with Eagle in her free time, just to see if he had what it took. Turns out, he was a natural. Eagle could do what other dogs couldn't. He could detect blood that had been scrubbed away and covered in paint. A forensic anthropologist once said, if a good cadaver dog was a 10 out of 10, Eagle was a 20. That's why McGregor had called them in. After introductions, Sandra gave the okay to pet Eagle. The officer scratched behind his ears. He leaned in, tail swishing. Then, suddenly, Eagle looked up toward the trees. He was ready. Sandra nodded. He's working now. The team hiked into the woods, heading for the exact area where investigators had long suspected Charita might be buried. McGregor and his partner hung back, letting Sandra and Eagle take the lead. They'd seen cadaver dogs in action before. It often took hours to find anything, sometimes days. But Eagle wasn't like the others. Within minutes of arriving at the clearing, Eagle paused, then darted straight toward a tree. He began pawing the ground. Sandra rushed over and crouched down beside him. Eagle dug furiously. Then, bone. Sandra called out. McGregor and David hurried over. She held up a fragment. Human bone. Eagle didn't find animal remains. If he signaled a hit, it meant human. McGregor was stunned. After 21 years chasing dead ends, they'd found something. Here, in the exact area they'd been searching all along. Sandra didn't seem surprised. She gave Eagle a treat. He stood, wagged his tail, and kept sniffing. And the bones kept coming. After Sandra and Eagle located the first bone, McGregor and his partner carefully collected it, bagged it as evidence, and then let Eagle continue his search. Over the course of that day, Eagle uncovered even more bones, scattered fragments, each one human. The progress was astounding. When the team returned the next day to comb through the area again, Eagle picked up right where he left off. More bones, more fragments. It was like the ground had been hiding pieces of a person in plain sight all along. To McGregor, this wasn't just an exciting development. It felt like the breakthrough he'd been waiting for his entire career. It wasn't unusual for human remains left out in the wild for years to scatter. Animals, weather, time, all of it played a part in spreading bones across the terrain. So finding them in multiple spots made perfect sense. What McGregor didn't expect was how many they were finding, and how quickly. Still, every new discovery added fuel to his belief that Charita Thomas had finally been found, and that Eagle had done the impossible. He thanked Sandra and Eagle over and over, then returned to the station with the evidence. All the bone fragments were sent to the FBI for analysis. They waited months. Then, in February of 2002, McGregor got the call. He expected confirmation that the remains belonged to Charita. What he heard instead chilled him to the bone. The fragments didn't belong to Charita Thomas. In fact, they didn't even belong to just one person. They belonged to 3 different people. McGregor didn't panic. Instead, his thoughts shifted. Maybe this wasn't just about Charita anymore. Maybe Jimmy Nelson, long suspected but never proven guilty, was more dangerous than they thought. Maybe he was a serial killer, dumping victims in the same part of the forest over the years. This idea, while terrifying, gave McGregor a new sense of purpose. But there was a problem. No one knew who these other 3 people were. Not the FBI, not local law enforcement. The bodies were unidentified. So McGregor did the only thing he could. He called Sandra again. He needed Eagle back in that forest. Sandra agreed. The next search began on April 17, 2002. A larger team assembled this time. Dozens of officers, crime scene specialists. And again, Sandra and Eagle led the way. For hours they searched. The police team found nothing. But Eagle did. Near a dry stream bed, Eagle began digging and found a human knuckle bone. McGregor felt triumph rise again. More evidence, more answers. If this truly was a dumping ground for a serial killer, he was going to be the one to uncover the truth. Then, chaos. As he turned to continue searching, McGregor heard shouting behind him, back where Eagle had just made the new discovery. He whipped around. There was a scuffle breaking out. He couldn't tell what was going on. People were yelling. Bodies moved. Confusion everywhere. He ran toward it, heart pounding. What happened next wasn't another forensic miracle. It wasn't another piece of a long-lost body. It was a revelation. A sick, unexpected, unforgivable revelation. As McGregor rushed toward the commotion, he expected to break up a fight or calm someone down. But what he found wasn't a fight at all. It was a scene unraveling. Sandra, the respected cadaver dog handler, was at the center of it. Moments earlier, she and Eagle had wandered slightly away from the group. Thinking she was unseen, Sandra had crouched down and pulled something from inside her sock, a small bone. She was about to place it on the ground, but someone saw her. A crime scene technician nearby had noticed her strange movement and locked eyes with her just as she was mid-act. The technician immediately approached her, confronting her. That was the yelling. Sandra panicked. She began flailing and shouting, pretending that the technician had attacked her, making a dramatic scene to draw attention away from what she'd just been caught doing. But the damage was done. The lie was exposed. Eagle had not discovered that bone fragment. Sandra had planted it, and it wasn't the first time. As the police pulled Sandra aside and began questioning her, a bigger truth began to emerge, one more unbelievable than anything McGregor had expected. Eagle wasn't a miracle cadaver dog. He wasn't even a cadaver dog at all. The incredible finds from the past searches. Those weren't miracles of scent tracking. They were part of a disturbing scheme. Sandra had been bringing real human bones with her to searches, bones she'd hidden in her clothes, often pressed to her skin, and dropping them in the field where she knew people would find them. She craved the attention, the praise, the feeling of being the hero. Sandra had fooled everyone. And she'd been doing it for years. She traveled across the country, joining murder investigations and showing up with Eagle. Over and over again, she would plant bones and wait for Eagle to find them. Then she'd bask in the credit. Dozens of cases, dozens of lies, and no one had questioned it until now. Sandra was arrested and later confessed to her scheme. The bones she had planted? They weren't taken from murder scenes. They had come from cadavers at medical centers, body donations used for research or education. She had been stealing from the dead, then pretending to uncover them. She pleaded guilty to multiple felonies, including obstruction of justice and falsifying evidence. She received a sentence of 21 months in prison. Following her arrest, the FBI had to go back and review 50 homicide cases Sandra and Eagle had been involved in. Fortunately, none of the convictions depended solely on her findings, so no one was released. But the stain of her deception lingered. As for Jimmy Nelson, the man long suspected of killing Charita Thomas, he was eventually convicted. However, his conviction was later overturned. That reversal had nothing to do with Sandra. It came from completely separate evidence. To this day, no one knows for certain what happened to Charita Thomas. Her body has never been found. And Eagle? He was never blamed. Though he wasn't a real cadaver dog, no one held it against him. He retired from crime scene work and lived out his days peacefully, spoiled with treats, until he passed away in 2003. So let's talk about this. How could someone fool law enforcement for so long? And what drives a person to insert themselves into murder cases just to stage fake victories? The moral here is sharp. Even in the pursuit of justice, ego and deception can twist the truth. Real heroes don't need to fake miracles. They just do the work. If this story caught you off guard, left you reeling, or made you rethink what truth means in an investigation, go ahead, smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel so you never miss another wild true tale, and share this video with someone who thinks they've heard it all. Stay skeptical, stay grounded, and remember, not every savior wears a badge. Some just carry bones in their socks.